Welcome everybody also from my side. I had this idea some time ago to talk about openLCA in our times and present, then we thought it's a good idea to have as a keynote, and it's maybe even last weeks has become even more so a topic. openLCA in our times, and don't think of Chamberlain here, but just maybe a small reference. So I had this idea. So I'm in, maybe some know me. I had really started 30 years ago or so with that. I thought LCA makes sense and is really the good method for getting a holistic impact of product or service. And since then, it has really seen an enormous boost and uptake worldwide. And today, I think it's true that there are three things. One is LCA is daily business practice, so probably every company now applies LCA, policies apply LCA, and so forth. But then also, and this is in our times, it's maybe so that the world's attention is shifting to other things. So it was really sustainability, was climate change, and so was very top on the agenda. It's maybe not like this anymore. Yeah, so it's more maybe defense, economy in general, or whatever. Yeah, but then let's think what we do in this situation, and if it's correct. And then LCA is still room for improvement. So it was a bit, I think, in this boom period that some things have been an issue since beginning and haven't been really tackled, and it's maybe time to tackle them now. So so I tried to present these ideas and let's put them for discussion. Let's see what you think about them. So we have a changing situation. This is really one of, I mean, there are many examples that show also the publications that go up. And so this is the LCA market study, which is maybe a bit, you always think, how do they come to the numbers? But you see that in the middle is 2024, and it's just foreseen to be going up and up. So this is the reference for this. But then you also see that they think that the biggest market is life cycle assessment is the USA, and that's maybe changing. For example, that's just one indication. And so another indication is just a bus here, but it's omnibus is maybe something that people understand here, so that the European Union now also for these reporting efforts maybe should be streamed down a bit and not become so elaborate as they have been foreseen. So there are just some like dots that are present. So what do we do with it? I think, of course, I'm biased. Lifecycle assessment is still an excellent, unique, and needed methodology and approach. But maybe people might have less patience with imperfections in the method and effort linked to lifecycle assessment. So I'm also an engineer, so it's maybe good to see what can we do to make so that it becomes more efficient and more effective. And of course, for us, this is linked to lifecycle, to openLCA. And for this, making some LCA more efficient and effective, I think there are 3 points. I mean, there may be more, but cost and effort, data, and also the modeling itself. And I go through these. It's of course the effort for an LCA study and result. You will of course always need manual modeling, but if you think an entire company like Merck, BASF, Siemens, and so on, it's just not possible to do an LCA for every product. Somehow, it's just not possible. And then there's of course software costs, database costs that also need to be considered. I mean, we with openLCA as a free tool, we are quite good there, but still the overall picture is manual LCAs can't be done for really fully upscale lifecycle assessment. So therefore there need to be tools for mass creation of LCAs, tools that contain predefined models, where only parameters are changed, and then there are different types of users. Not everyone is an LCA expert. And for openLCA, we have this now what we call ecosystem of online LCA, which is a web-based tool that links to openLCA, and this online LCA allows to expose a model to really literally hundreds of users who only change parameters. So that could be one contribution in this direction. Just need one minute to change slide, but next is data, and availability of data is one point, and you see here a list of the processes and products that are available in the Economen database. I mean, probably many use and understand or know the Economen database. It's really one of the most used lifecycle assessment databases worldwide, I think. And you see that overall we have 4,200 products in the latest release. And this is, of course, not really covering every product that is available on the market at all, by far. And second, age of data, this again, Economen, and maybe some are familiar with this data quality calculation. openLCA, you see in this, here, this is the time, and you see it's just an arbitrary glass tube factorial construction, but it holds for any or many data sets in Economen. That the time is always gets 4 or 5, which is worst score. 5 is worst score for time, meaning data is, strictly speaking, outdated. And a small point is licenses. That is for many maybe an issue if you try to use licensed data sets. This can be quite annoying and tedious, and you need to have a lot of discussion. And one example for us is Archibalise, for example. It's not possible to be distributed for free, but you need to have an Economen license to do this, so that's a bit side effect. But this also shows that I think it's one annoyance, so to say, worth life cycle assessment. And then data exchange. This is predominantly XML-based formats are used in Europe, but also worldwide, I think. So ILCD and EcoSpol2 a bit by Economen. And outside of the lifecycle assessment domain, this is really seen as a really outdated format. So I just copied one example. XML had its golden age upon its creation. It contributed tremendously to data interchange. To these days, it is often considered antique. Yeah, but this is really the reference data. ILCD is an XML data format that is used broadly. And when we just look at one example, so here, then, I mean, maybe not too much into IT. So this is the XML picture or XML snippet for that. And this is the JSON format that openLCA uses. So openLCA understands also ILCD, but also JSON, which is a more modern format. And you see that this is more clearly readable. And I made a test just in preparation of this. When we export the Archibalise database from openLCA, export from openLCA and in ILCD or in our JSON format, and import it again in, or import the format from ILCD or from JSON, then you see that importing is taking ILCD 3 times longer than with JSON. And it's a very small but technical point. And why should everybody wait 3 times longer? Just because someone agreed 20 years ago, this is the format that we need to or should use. Yes, and then you have another point for data is that you often see system processes, you have a lack of documentation, or sometimes also flooding with unfitting information or documentation, and it's maybe a less observed point. Therefore, I collected this for an example for the ILCD database, electricity from biogas. And this is all the references listed there. Yeah. And to get a small, and this is an excerpt from this. So we have Kunststoffverwertung im Kanton Zug, industrial organic chemistry, Italian greenhouse gas inventory, Lithuanians informative inventory 2008, and this is a Hungarian biogas dataset, so I forgot to mention. So you see that this is not fitting, and this is another way to just hide what you do in the dataset, I think. It's environmental footprint database, yeah, so it's not really. And then this is something that you maybe also are aware of when you just make a common model with background database, then the result depends quite a bit on what background database you select. There's an example from previous project where here my colleague Julia was leading this deliverable, and it's a model for polypropylene production, 1 kilo, same model, but different background databases. And you see that in calculated in environmental footprint single score, so aggregate everything to one score. You see that eConvent has gets the highest result, and carbon mines lowest, and environmental footprint database is somehow in the middle, but it's not exactly twice the impact, but quite different. And this is, of course, also something where I think this is maybe not perfect. And then there's another aspect, I think, to this perception versus reality of LCA data. Simone Fazio is a nice friend, so he's really also a good guy. Sorry, but he presented eConvent, so it's now working for eConvent. It was previously working at GSC, and it's a typical sentence that you often see then in this context. It was just a LinkedIn post. I've just enlarged it here. Data plays a fundamental role in maintaining robust and transparent scientific backbone to provide the correct support to policymakers, as well as business to communicate to consumer communication. And this is a bit really contradicting to this, that the result depend on the background database, I think. And there's even more to this, that because you say background database influences the result, there are DGNB is a German association for certification of sustainability of buildings, and they say you must use the Gabi database to do the certification, which is strange. So I think it's as if you say you must use Mercedes trucks for delivering the scent to us, because otherwise it doesn't work. So this really, I think, one imperfection of life cycle assessment, and it has a bit of side note because it's so the Geschäftsführende Vorstand, so it's a bit like managing director of this, Johannes Kreisig, who's also a good guy, but he was formerly working at Gabi, so therefore there's quite a connection. And this is something I think if you look this in other, it's like we've been in LCA maybe like the Gaelic village, if this exists in English, so that we have been in our community and this was all accepted, but now if the world looks at this with more like less patience, then maybe this doesn't survive. And so therefore we need to think, how can we become better, I think. Finally, modeling. I think LCA, of course, can be summarized in many different ways, but I think the overall idea is to provide a holistic picture of impacts linked to a product or service over the life cycle, and to avoid burden shifting. Yeah? So that was really one key aspect, that you need to look at the full life cycle, because then you can't, as a producer, say, well, we buy the steel from somewhere else, so we are not having in our company the dirty steel making, so therefore we have improved. So this overall is not really better, and this is really nicely addressed by life cycle assessment. But there are and this has been accepted and used since 30 years. But now, is this really fully achieved always? I think it's really, so more it has always like delay until it reaches the, yes, no. Can you go back 2 slides? Yes, so the linear model that LCA has one slide, yes. Thank you. Linear model has difficulties to model thresholds and context, which is for climate change, for example, it doesn't matter so much and so, but if you think of biodiversity, boundaries, especially local boundaries, social effects, then an overall linear worldwide result is maybe not useful. So therefore you typically struggle. I mean, there are of course developments, I'm not saying this, but it's not easy to consider biodiversity or other more complicated aspects, and typically they are not considered. And also accidents, littering, grey economy is simply not considered. So therefore, this is maybe better addressed in a not fully linear model, and it's not contradicting to this basic idea of life cycle assessment, I think. And yes, so life cycle assessment, so LCA modeling is of course goal and scope, foreground system connected of unit process. You link this to background database. So this second and third bullet are inventory modeling. Then you have impact assessment and interpretation. And when you do this foreground modeling, you typically just go from one process to the next process and to the next process until you are not anymore, until you finally connect to a background database. So go from here to there to there. And this is similar to a frog perspective, I think. So you just go from one process to the next process, and you do not really use system knowledge. And that is a pity, I think. And that could be introduced into life cycle assessment and enrich and make the methodology better, I think. And one a bit stupid example for this frog perspective is an older article there, but there are many. If you that's a peer-reviewed paper, it's a comparison of granola versus so conventional granola versus genetically modified granola. The GM granola needs less fertilizer, and so then the full LCA was performed, and somehow in this life cycle assessment, because it's difficult to tackle, the effect of exposing or putting GM organisms into nature was not considered. And so then what do you think is the result? The result is this. The conventional granola is dark gray. So this is always worse. That's of course a bit clear, and you could say if you ignore the effect of GM organisms, then it's clear that this is the result. So we don't need maybe to make the LCA study in the first place. So this is an example for that you lose or you do not really use the information that you have when starting an LCA, and this is I think could be useful. Okay, so I hope that is a bit, maybe for you it's also a bit an interesting start of an LCA conference to say, how can LCA improve? But let's see that maybe this leads to some ideas on your side also, and we get some feedback. Our plans with openLCA, it's maybe not surprising that they align a bit to the points I made. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, so data upscaling tool methodology. I will talk tomorrow about a massive database that we are developing, and that addresses with the idea to address this data point. We have this openLCA ecosystem of tools to address this upscaling tool point, but it's also data that it's not only us, but also there are quite some interesting other presentations on data. So there's some movement, but it's here, this is from our starting point, so to say. And methodology, we have now quite some experiences with system dynamics models coupled with LCA, which use better the system view and information, and I think overall enrich and make the model better. And also so that you can often save effort, so that you don't need to follow the supply chain to just realize, okay, I can anyhow forget it also. So this is really useful and helping to make LCA more effective and efficient in line of my initial idea. And then also we plan to make more outreach. I mean, this conference is one step for us to really outreach, and as Julia said, it's second iteration. So therefore, I think this is very nice to see that this seems to work, but we have more plans in this direction. And here just the, where we will in this conference talk about this. In the interactive session is one idea and one point where we collect then this feedback at the end, as you have heard. Okay, some conclusions. I think LCA has seen enormous success in the last 30 years, and it will be an important tool also in future. It is always good to make LCA more effective and efficient. I try to list some aspects to link to tools, data, and method, but maybe now there's even more time to think of making LCA better in a way. We are working on these things, but of course we cannot do this alone at all. Yeah, and so therefore we are increasingly reaching out and engaging in some networks. So also again joining this European TAP group, for example, which I left because I thought it's not effective, but we are starting this again. Please approach us with ideas, contributions, and challenges. And maybe we can organize the openLCA users into some community that contributes or works in this direction. I think we have it also openLCA has seen an enormous uptake, of course, and it wasn't planned or foreseen at all, so that we have now 100,000 or so users worldwide. This really wouldn't have thought about this. So maybe we can have really some channel and impact also when we do something here. So, but what do you think? I'm really curious, and everybody from openLCA, which you recognize with the t-shirts, we are curious to hear your feedback and to see how maybe we can do something in this direction. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have one discussion starter for the audience and for you. Do you think it's still the right idea to go into the direction of better databases, or maybe look into things like the digital product passport as a data source future, or as a better data source for lifecycle assessments?
Yes, good. Can I do like this? Good comment. I think the normal lifecycle assessment use is for these databases. So they have processes and then can connect to this process. With the system dynamics, it's also that you can connect rather to models, and that's something a bit different. Digital product passport, I think, is a very good secondary information source, so to say, because you can unfortunate thing in lifecycle assessment models is if one supplier doesn't respond to you, you lose the entire supply chain before and have no information about the product. But a digital product passport, if one actor in the supply chain doesn't respond, then you have one hole there, but hopefully the rest is still there. So this is a very good way to complement maybe lifecycle information. I wouldn't say it's fully replacing normal lifecycle assessment database, because the data structures are quite different. Also, it's a bit, and when you look at the European Commission, their idea is very vague, so they don't have a very concrete data format, for example. I mean, there's a project to develop this or to have this, but it's not really broadly accepted. So for a tool from our side, for a tool developer, it's not that we say we can directly connect to digital product passport and forget all the databases that we have also, because many typically maybe carbon emissions are reported also, but many impacts are not reported, so we don't have them. But I think it's a very good secondary pathway. And just also one example that the world changes, and then we as LCA people, so to say, need to be aware of this and use these new sources, for example, also. I agree. Good point. Thank you.
Super. Yes, for me, if I could also comment on this, now that I have the mic, I can. For me, it would be really cool that a lot of information could be passed through digital product passports, but I've seen cases where really, if you have the 16 impact categories of the EF 3.1 LCA method, is good, because sometimes, depending on who you're speaking with, and if they're only interested in PCF, they might only communicate the carbon footprint, for example. And if the digital product passport, we managed to put, as Andreas was saying, a data format that could have a lot of information, also how you've calculated it, which that could be then useful. But as of now, I feel it's pretty a static thing.
Yes, but maybe a second point is also quality assurance is not fully thought through, I think, or at least it's emerging in digital product passport. So now you're quite happy if you find a number, but then if this really makes sense, also this is, yes, yeah, or maybe other, yeah, but So this is emerging, I think, but good point. There was another question.
Yeah, hi. So obviously, databases are so critical to the whole LCA thing. You've mentioned the economy building around paid databases. I was wondering what your view on the free databases available, their usefulness and reliability, especially the ones that are available in the openLCA Nexus.
Well, that's a good point. I think databases are more difficult to keep free than tools because, I mean, openLCA is a free tool and this works. I think really because we get projects where we develop it further and that also allows us to do maintenance, and it's really keeping the technology of openLCA up to date and expand features and so on, and keeping it fully free. But databases are quite difficult because I think I always say it's a bit like if you have a bag of fruit. So you need to take care of this, and it decays, and it's more decaying faster than tools, I think. So you need to really be aware of maintaining your data sets and to maybe getting new products. And from my experience, I think it's typically very difficult for free databases to do this. Also, sometimes in a project, a database is created, but then the project stops and no one takes care of this anymore. There are in the LCA Commons database, this is now getting better and better, and they really try to make a free database that is useful for US context, of course, that is good, but typically other databases are quite struggling. And then because the database is not perfect, like Argebalis, who's basically French food database, they complete their data sets with Ecoment, and then Ecoment says, this is our license, so therefore you must not distribute it for free. So there are quite a lot of issues, and I think for that reason it's difficult to keep a free database. And somehow this basic Ecoment model is not too bad, I think, so that you have a moderate, maybe you can discuss if it's too expensive or so, but a moderate fee to allow maintaining the database. You can discuss if they really maintain the database and so on, but that the database operator can spend effort to really maintain and extend the database, I would say. Yeah? Or you can say, basically, a free database is public infrastructure, but the European Commission's database really asked Jonas, who's here, he spent, I've worked like 4 weeks to really adapt it for openLCA because of all the technical issues we were finding there. But hopefully this is improving for the next release.
Nice, maybe we can have a last question. Yes. Before moving on.
Yes, so I don't think that we have to shoot too much about the database providers, but I think it's a very critical point that for the same product, you showed the slide about 1 kilogram of PP granulation, we have different environmental impacts. And sometimes I have the feeling that it's more that they are promoting that the lower the data set or the result is, the better use our database just because our environmental impact is lower. And I think we have to focus a little bit more on data quality. And that is sometimes a bit, I think, neglected in the discussion at the moment. I think that's very critical.
I agree. On a short comment, I had one point was traceability, and I think this is the key because, of course, strictly speaking, you will have different producers who have different processes, different efficiency, and therefore you will have different results when you look at different producers. So it's not expected that everybody gets the same result. But Carbon Mine so far and Environmental Footprint Database are system processes, so we have no chance to check how the model was done. We have done this by BBSR, who runs the Ökobaudat in a small project 2 years ago, so to check why the cement datasets are so different in Gabi and Economent. And it turned out that it wasn't documented, but one was using wet milling and the other not. And this, of course, and different data sources and so on. But this different process contributes a lot to differences. And if you can't see the model, because even if it's written down, it's maybe not true. So if you as a user can't see this, then you have no chance, I think. And Economent is maybe here a bit outdated, so therefore it's the highest result. Yeah, so it's a bunch of issues linked to this, but I fully agree.